I was standing at this kitchen sink, spooning the last bit of vinaigrette into a plastic container when Mom said it, soft and casual. "We're out of oat milk," she said. "Can you grab some after work?" I didn't look up, just snapped the lid shut and said, "Is this for you or for Amber's?" No smile. She never jokes when it comes to Amber. "It's for her tea," she said, folding the grocery list like it was sacred. "She needs to unwind before her trip." I paused mid-wipe. "Trip to where?" "Alaska," she replied. "Wellness retreat. You know, rebalance mood and all that." I turned around slowly. "She's going to Alaska." Mom blinked like I was the one being dramatic. "Just a few days, spa-type place, holistic. You know, she's been under a lot of pressure lately. Alaska, spa, holistic stress relief. That's what she called it. Not jobless. Not 19 months of freeloading. Not the reason I've been bankrolling the mortgage, the food, the phone bill, and now oat milk for afternoon tea. How's she affording this?" "She won it," Mom said, too fast. "Some online raffle?" "Naturally," I muttered. "A wellness retreat in Alaska from a raffle." "Vivian," Mom said with a pause, "don't be so cynical. She deserves joy too." I dried my hands on the towel, the edge snagging on my ring. "When I got promoted last year, you said congrats, and then asked if I could float the water bill." That was the entire reaction I got. Mom's expression tightened. "That's not fair." "Exactly. It's not." I heard keys in the hallway. Amber strutted into the kitchen like she owned the place. She had on the parka I gave her last Christmas. The same one she called boring. She looked like she was glowing. Opened the fridge. "Where's the oat milk?" I stayed silent. Mom passed her the folded grocery list. "Vivian's grabbing it." Amber kissed Mom's cheek. "Thanks, Mom," she tossed out, never meeting my eyes, then vanished. I watched the door shut. The silence she left behind felt thick, like dust after an earthquake. "I thought she was broke," I said. "She needed a break," Mom replied. "You don't get how hard staying in all day is for her." I didn't argue. The sink kept running, and I let it, because somewhere deep down, I already knew the story didn't add up. It wasn't just this trip or the oat milk. Things had been tilted for a long time. I just hadn't admitted it out loud. Not yet. But that silence was nearing its end. The next morning, I Googled Alaska retreat raffle just to humor the idea. It didn't exist. Big surprise. That evening, I brought it up again over dinner, casually slicing my meatloaf like it wasn't loaded with suspicion. She was reheating something frozen and pretending it was homemade. The way she always did, when she wanted to look like she was holding the household together with an apron and a lie. "So, what kind of raffle was it?" She blinked, then stared at the microwave like it had betrayed her. "Just one of those travel sweepstakes," she muttered. "You know Amber, always signing up for random things online." I chewed the overcooked meatloaf slowly, letting the silence fill the room. "Strange," I said. "Amber usually can't stop talking when she wins something." Mom shot me a wary glance. "She probably didn't want to stress you out. You've been under a lot of pressure." That sudden concern felt like a script she barely believed in. "I'm not upset," I said calmly. And it wasn't just exhaustion. I was drained from always being the fallback. Dependable, invisible, until something breaks. The following morning, my phone buzzed with a call from the credit card company. I was mid-meeting when their number appeared on my screen. I hesitated, then picked up. My gut told me this wasn't something to ignore. "This is Monica from Gold Line Credit," the voice said, courteous but clipped. "We're reaching out to confirm unusual charges on your credit card." I excused myself from the meeting and walked into the hallway. "What kind of charges are you seeing?" "There have been several large charges originating in Reykjavik. Luxury hotel stays, spa packages, Upscale shopping. We're just checking if you're currently traveling. I shut my eyes. No, I replied. I'm not on any trip. She hesitated on the other end. Would you like me to freeze the card immediately? Yes, I said without hesitation. $24,000. That's how fast the charges piled up on my gold card in just 3 days. I scanned the breakdown from the email, line by line. Luxury hotel, guided excursions, spa treatments, fine dining, and a glacier helicopter ride. I sent it to my own inbox and printed a hard copy. I left the report where Mom drank her morning coffee and pretended the paper was all that mattered. That night, the living room felt too calm, like the silence knew what I'd done. Mom was folding clothes like it was a full-time job. Dad cleared his throat. The most words I'd heard from him all week. She didn't mean harm, he said, like that was supposed to make it better. I stayed quiet. You always leave it on the counter, Mom said, as if that explained everything. It's not stealing, she said, just borrowing. I held up the printout. 24 grand, 3 days. She thought the points would expire, Mom rushed to explain. Didn't want them wasted. I looked her dead in the eye. She said that? Mom hesitated. Something like that. I didn't respond, just grabbed the paper and left the room. Amber's voicemail was all sunshine. Card's not working, can you sort that? Still gotta book the ice cave, love ya. I didn't tell them I'd frozen the card. They figured it out the next day. Amber called from her hotel lobby. She says the card isn't working, Mom reported from the couch. I kept typing. It's not, Mom blinked. You shut it off? I reported it stolen, I said, flat. Dad muttered from his chair. Bit much, don't you think? She used it without asking, I answered. That's still theft, no matter how you spin it, Mom's tone sharpened. You always blow things out of proportion. Amber's name flashed on my screen again. I let it ring. Her voicemail dripped with entitlement. You really canceled it? I had plans, Cass. So childish. I was going to bring you a gift. I laughed, short and bitter. A souvenir t-shirt doesn't excuse stealing $24,000. That evening, Mom knocked, something she hadn't done since I was a teen. We need to talk, she said, stepping inside before I answered. She's stuck there, Mom insisted. No cash. She ordered fancy dinner last night. It's all on the bill. I cut across. She's your sister, Vivian. That tired refrain again. Family duty, me, the default fixer. I straightened. Remember college? 3 jobs, ulcer? Mom winced. Is now really the time to dredge that up? I called crying, asked for help with $2,000 in medical bills. You said Amber's braces mattered more. She folded her hands like in prayer. Things were different then. It's always different when it's not about Amber. In that moment, she looked ancient, not aged, but revealed, as if pretending had worn her thin. Then, unexpectedly, she reached across the space between us and placed her hand on mine. I know we weren't always fair, she said softly. But Amber, she needs you now. I didn't reject her touch, but I didn't lean into it either. I thought of the voicemail, the receipt, how Amber said, fix it, like I was her assistant, not her family. I remembered my 16th birthday, how she got a car and I got a handshake with a savings bond. I remembered the time she borrowed my rent money for her business idea, then spent it on a music festival. I thought of the house, the deed Dad handed me 5 years ago when I paid the taxes he couldn't. The deal was clear. I covered the cost. I got the title. I remembered it all. And finally, I smiled. All right, I said. Mom's head lifted, eyes wide with sudden hope. You'll help her? I stood, walked to the dresser, opened the top drawer, and pulled out a different card. Black, unused, gleaming. This one still works, I said, handing it over. Get her whatever she wants. She held it like it was redemption, like all sins had been erased. I waited until she left, then grabbed my phone and dialed a number I hadn't used in over a year. Grandma, I said, do you still need someone in the kitchen at the cafe? The days that followed felt oddly calm. After the third voicemail, Amber stopped calling so much. Her tone shifted from bubbly to bitter to something vaguely apologetic. She never said sorry, but her long pauses and dragged-out sighs made it clear she thought that was close enough. Mom's tone softened too. Less orders, more suggestions. She even started offering coffee when I came home, like asking how my day was, but never pausing to hear it. And I smiled, nodded. I handed them a card. It wasn't the gold one. This was black, sleek, new. I'd left it untouched for over a year, tucked behind old receipts. I received it after a networking event. Never even activated it. I activated it, put a cap on spending, and passed it along. She didn't ask why it wasn't the same card. She just smiled and walked away. That's when I knew she still believed the script hadn't changed. The next morning, Mom and Dad packed their bags to go to Alaska with Amber. They said they don't trust the shipping company and have to bring the card over themselves to feel secure. I said nothing, silently watching them pack their bags to go to Alaska just to give a card to Amber. Amber texted the next evening, "The card works. You're amazing. I'll bring you something special." I didn't reply. I quietly packed 3 boxes and scheduled a moving truck for the following Tuesday, just the essentials. Clothes, documents, books. Everything else could be left behind. The next morning, I called a realtor named Monica. We had met briefly at a networking mixer 3 years ago. She remembered and asked about the house. I told her I was ready to move on. She didn't need the backstory, just that I owned the deed, had sole authority, and would be out by Friday. She mentioned a buyer eager for this street. We set a date for the walkthrough. In the garage, I found the tax deed my dad had signed years ago, tucked in a folder labeled temporary. I'd never changed the label. Upstairs, I took down the old Christmas photo, the one where only my shoulder made it into the frame. It used to sting. Now I understood I was never really part of the picture, just near enough to cast a shadow. I left without a word, just slipped the key under a garden rock for the movers, each box labeled clearly, the kitchen docks, too important to misplace. Then I drove to Grandma's. Grandma didn't need an explanation. She just opened the door, nodded, and said, 3 rooms, no drama. I grinned. That's exactly what I need. The house welcomed me with scents of dough, tomatoes, and time-worn wood. The kitchen, chaotic as ever, barked orders in a mix of English, Spanish, and that warm chaos in between. Grandma's cafe hadn't aged a day. "Ready?" Grandma asked. "Not quite," I said, but deep down I was getting there. She nodded like she knew. "They'll come. Be ready." I was. And when they did, I didn't flinch. Thursday afternoon, they returned. Clouds overhead, suitcase wheels scratching the walkway. Foreboding. I waited on the porch swing. Amber emerged, wearing that familiar fake smile. "You came to pick us up?" I stayed silent. Dad said nothing, just lifted the bags. Mom fumbled with her keys, jiggled the lock, then paused. "Did you mess with the code?" she asked, baffled. "No," I said calmly. "I replaced the whole lock." Her eyes widened. "What? Why? This isn't your home anymore." She let out that stiff little laugh, the one she used when cornered. "Vivian, don't be ridiculous." I rose slowly, stepped down the porch, and placed a thick manila envelope in her hands. Inside were all the final papers, signed contracts, payment confirmations, wire receipts. Monica had moved quickly. New owners were arriving Monday. "I sold the house," I said simply. Amber squinted. "Sold what?" The house, her smile shattered instantly. You can't do that, she barked. That's illegal. This house belongs to Dad. Dad flipped through the papers, his face drained of color before he even got halfway through. Dad, I said gently, you signed the deed over to me 5 years ago, when the IRS came knocking, remember? He opened his mouth to argue, then shut it, sat down slowly on the curb, like the truth had knocked the wind out of him. Mom's voice turned cold and sharp. You had no right to do this. I met her eyes, steady, unwavering. For once I didn't shrink under her glare. I paid the debts, I said, the taxes, the mortgage, every leaking pipe and broken tile. Me, not you. For 5 years I held this place together. You just occupied it. Amber took a step closer. Where are we even supposed to go? I passed her a second envelope. She unfolded it to find an address, a ring of keys, and a sticky note scrawled in Grandma's familiar script. Room upstairs, shift begins at 6, apron tied by 5:45. Mom stared at the note like it was in another language. You shipped our stuff to your grandmother's? To your mother, I clarified. And she's agreed to house you, if you earn your keep. Amber rolled her eyes. She can't boss me around. She's been doing exactly that since long before you existed, Dad broke his silence. What about the card? I looked at him. Which one? The black card, the one we used before. Oh, I replied. That one was never mine. Amber stiffened. What? That card was under your name. I held her gaze. You opened it 2 years ago. Left it behind when you walked out on that copywriting gig. I never used it, she barked. Well, you have now. She glanced between the bill and me. You're lying. I said nothing. Right then, the moving truck rumbled into the driveway. Out stepped the new owners, smiling parents, a baby in arms, and a tail-wagging dog. I turned back to them. You've got 3 days to clear out of Grandma's guest rooms. Mom opened her mouth to protest, then shut it again. I didn't stick around for the argument. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove off. No goodbyes, no dramatic exits. The house was gone. So was I. Things were quiet for a while after that. No calls, no messages, no late-night drama, just peace. I rented a modest apartment across town. Nothing fancy, 2 rooms, soft lighting, and blessedly no shared walls. The kind of quiet you don't know you've been craving until it's yours. Work got busier. I stopped obsessively checking my bank account. The phone could ring now without making me flinch. I bought flowers for my kitchen table, not for a celebration, just because they were pretty. Then one morning, Grandma called. She never wastes time with chit-chat. They're adjusting, she said. I didn't need to ask who she meant. Your mother scrubs pans slower than I prefer, but she's trying. Your father folds napkins now badly. And your sister? She's finally showing up to work on time. I stayed quiet. Grandma let out a sigh. They're no saints, but they're changing. Some lessons only come through effort and grit. That night, I lay awake, not from guilt, but from the weight I hadn't noticed I'd been carrying. The kind that lives in your bones until someone gives it a name. The following week, I passed by the cafe, not to talk, just to look. The back door was ajar. Familiar scents, garlic, oil, warm bread, wrapped around me like an old jacket. Through the window, I watched them work. Amber wiping down the counters, sleeves rolled, hair pulled back. Dad folding menus into neat piles. Mom, silent, scrubbing dishes, lips tight. No one looked up. I didn't go in. I just stood there, watching, not with rage, not with sorrow, just a calm understanding. They looked like people finally learning to carry their share, and for once nobody expected me to fix it. I turned and headed back to my car. Later that week, a letter came. my name in careful cursive, the kind I hadn't seen since I was little, just one sentence inside. You were right. I just didn't want you to be, Mom. No apology, just the truth. And somehow it was enough. I folded it and tucked it into a shoebox with other keepsakes I wasn't ready to part with. An old photo, Grandma's birthday card, and the receipt for the back taxes I once covered. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just closed the box. Months slipped by. The seasons turned. Occasionally, I'd hear updates through Grandma or a church friend. Amber picked up a second job. Dad repaired the cafe plumbing. Mom baked again. It didn't stir anything deep, just a flicker, a quiet maybe. The dust had settled. One Sunday, I passed by the old house. Fresh paint, flower beds, a toddler's trike parked outside. I didn't stop walking, didn't pause, because this wasn't about reclaiming what I'd lost. It was about leaving before I disappeared completely and never letting anyone erase me again.